helping us to further unpack this is Dr. Lesley-Ann Foster, who's the founder and executive director of the Masimanyane Women's Rights International. Dr. Foster, it's always a great pleasure to have you with us. Welcome. So, another harrowing incident of child abuse by their own guardian in this matter. I mean, where are the communities to raise the alarm? Where are the social services to address the situation and get these children into places of safety, well ahead of a situation where they find themselves in a place where they cannot return and they've been sexually abused?
Yeah, I think we're failing the children in our country dismally. But I think the responsibility for it doesn't fall only on the state agents, but families first, because within the families, people will know that the abuse is taking place. And I think in this case, you know, the fact that the neighbors reported the abuse is an important, measurement for us to see that communities are in fact taking responsibility and care. I think we need to build more social cohesion into our families and our society, because the fact that a parent can see it fit to abuse a child, or children, in this case, both a brother and sister, to the extent that they have done, is deeply traumatizing and deeply worrying that can take place. But it also points to another social ill, which is drug abuse. The fact that there's such wide drug abuse and alcohol abuse in our communities is one of the drivers of sexual violence and violence generally in our society. We don't have enough mechanisms in place to address that. We're not making any headway when it comes to dealing with those social issues, and in particular then when it leads to such brutal acts of violence of such very young children. This is deeply worrying. I think you're right in saying that the state agents are not visible enough. The Department of Social Development isn't, and I think that is a key role player in preventing the violence in our society. We need much more prevention programs, much deeper ways of addressing these issues than what we do currently. We definitely are failing our children.
Doctor, I mean, I was just about to say, how would you even then characterize this incident? Is it remnants of social or societal or cultural or even legal breakdowns in our system? Both parents here are actually facing these charges. But we might hear a different story, right? In that, of course, the mother might come forward and say that she might have been a victim of GBV herself and couldn't assist herself or the children in this matter. These are unfortunate, but true reflections of some of our households in the country.
Absolutely. I think one of the main drivers is inequality, economic inequality, social inequality, gender inequality, the whole array of different forms of inequality are definitely drivers here. Drug abuse, alcohol abuse can also be seen, through the lens of inequality, through the lens of poverty, the lens of a lack of education. So the structural drivers that lead to this situation are never actually addressed. What we do is we run awareness campaigns, we have marches, we have candlelighting ceremonies. None of that actually changes social norms in our society. And the real issue is how and when and to what extent do we change social norms. We need countrywide programs that run through all communities, through families, through individuals, where we can make those changes. And I think you're going to be right. You will hear that the mother of these children has in actual fact been a victim of many forms of both structural and interpersonal violence. But I think this case, what saddens me is this case is not an anomaly. You will find that there are many hundreds of such cases, if not thousands, in our communities that are never reported. This one was reported because the community were alert to the violence. And that's why I say it's so important to deal with the structural, elements of such violence, that we will only then be able to turn the tide on it.
You know, Doctor, when you mentioned that issue of inequality, I was actually having an interview on another worrying issue in this country, which is underage teenage pregnancy. And I listened in dismay, right, when it was said that these domestic or social issues are actually as a direct result of poverty, and that these women sometimes are actually forced to have their children while they are in dire situations, and will even look sideways and not report these abuses because usually the men involved here are either the breadwinners or they are their primary source of basic food and shelter sources. Now, this certainly cannot be allowed to be the norm in our country. We are currently observing Women's Month. Where is the will to emancipate as well as assist women in inequality?
I think you make very, very important points there, about how inequality and poverty, actually frames violence or influences and impacts on violence against women in our country. I also want to make a point that we often in our organization, Masimanyane Women's Rights International, see an uptick of violence during August, which is Women's Month. It's a phenomena that is very strange to us, but it's almost as if there is a backlash, towards the campaigns that we run. But, we're saying, as a government, we say we're going to address economic empowerment of women, so that they are better, in a better place as to not have to actually continue in violent relationships. But that's not the main reason. It's the inequality where women have very low status in our society, where the norms in our society actually place them at a very low level, and therefore they, their bodies are deemed commodities. That's why you see such a lot of femicides and such brutality of women's bodies being, dissected and actually mutilated in the ways that they are. And even in this case of these children, the brutality of the attacks are just horrendous. And this is why we have to protect the children, but we have to empower women. The one thing that all research shows is that if you empower and protect the woman, the children will be protected. And that's why I think, again, coming back to the point you made, we will find that there's been elements of disempowerment of the mother here, that has actually led to this. Sometimes mothers are complicit in the violence, but again, we've got to look at what does that patriarchal system, how is it viewed, within the community and the family. And what is the status of that woman in the family? If she has low status in that family, she has no say in how the family is led, and whether she is actually able to protect her children.
Very concerning indeed, Doctor. As always, great input there. That is Dr. Lesley-Ann Foster of the Masimanyane Women's Rights on the parents of the two children who have now been charged with the abuse of these two minors.